Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Tom.
We're Team Binge. We're here to talk about Silo, Season 2, Episode 4. We're back. We're going to discuss the harmonium.
I used to play one of those in college.
You did? Incredible.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, Tom.
Isn't that the thing you hold up to your mouth and blow into?
Nope, it was in this episode, Tom. So clearly you haven't watched, which is going to be difficult to talk about. If you go through this whole podcast having not watched this episode and you can stay with me, man, I'm so proud of you. Your yes-anding ability is incredible. All right, we're going to talk Silo 17 and Silo 18, just so we're not hopping back and forth. Some interesting stuff was kind of revealed. As you had mentioned, Solo's a bit of a, we'll just say, character. That's a poor way of describing a character in a TV show. But they revealed some interesting things about him. And so as someone who read the book, I'm fascinated to pick your brain, and you can reveal whatever you want to reveal to us. And then there's a lot happening in Silo 18. I've got some questions about people's motivation and what we're all doing over there. But I enjoyed this episode. It moved well, and I just have questions, Tom. That's all. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's been a very fun show. And yeah, I'm with you. Like the questions that they are asking, we're essentially just continuing to move Silo 18 towards a revolution and figuring out what and when can Silo 17 and Juliet figure out what she's doing and try to get back. So it's been fun. But I'm with you. Like Carrie's motivations, I thought were a little bit wonky and definitely a bit different from the books, but I'm okay with it.
Okay. Well, I think Bernard's got it all under control. I don't think there's going to be any issue. I think the revolution's been kind of squashed, squished at this point.
Squenched.
Yeah, squinched. That's the one. Oh, man. I love a refreshing squinch. You know when you're playing basketball and you want a carbonated beverage and you reach for the squinch? Oh, man. That lemon, lime, avocado flavor is just an incredible carbonated beverage. Squinch. Team Binge brought to you by Squinch, by Coca-Cola, and probably some sort of pharmaceutical company. Anyways, let's move on. We're in Silo 17. All right, the whole goal here is Juliet's got to swim, and it's all right, we're doing a lot of engineering to swim. I think this is interesting. The more interesting point is just listening to Solo talk at her while she's trying to do stuff.
Right.
And when you have a kid at a certain age, which will come into play in this episode, this is very much like you're working on something. In your case, Tom, you're probably trying to install a fan. In my case, I don't know, I'm trying to swap a battery on something. And I have a kid that's just like, hey, do you want to hear about a 1980s video game that I found randomly? And you're like, hey, can you hand me that wrench? And he's like, excellent. Let me tell you about that 1980s video game. I got a lot of this vibe from Solo. And so it kind of makes sense, the reveal that they're getting to here. And so it's Juliet trying to go underwater, and he talks about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This is not a book I've read.
Yeah, it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the circus. I think what's interesting here is knowing how or how much Solo knows. For does he have these books? And this is what I was kind of touching on a little bit in the last episode. What is in that vault is seemingly a wealth of knowledge.
Right.
He's been in there and has just been digesting, and he's had nobody to talk to outside of the walls or his made-up friends. So hearing him kind of talk about her being the Captain Nemo and him being well-read, I thought was super interesting.
I'm assuming we're going to get into how long he's been alone, and just if you're alone in a silo and everyone else is dead and you have the ability to constantly explore, you're going to gather stuff. He's explaining to her what an elephant is. They talk about the ocean, which she's familiar with and he's surprised by. I thought this was interesting storytelling. It also, much like Lost, I do want to get in that vault, which we get a little bit of this in this episode, how Juliet might find herself in there at some point.
Right.
If only we could all remember that 4-digit PIN that we constantly forget, constantly have to have the bank send us a new debit card. Okay, they had a Founders Day. Juliet had a Freedom Day. I really like the quip where he's like, oh, what'd that celebrate? And she was like, freedom. That's great. But then, so he's and this gets to the age thing, Tom, and you can reveal as much as you want to, but he's looking at these kids' backpacks, and he's clearly having a memory of an owner of one of the backpacks. And so I was like, okay, so he's been alone since he was, I don't know, elementary school age, right? Is that what we're picking up here?
I think Juliet even says it, like that would put her at 11 or 12. And yeah, he's saying that he sat in class with this girl. And yeah, I mean, without really spoiling anything, because I think the show does it, like, yes, he was put in this situation at a very young age. And what they kind of show here throughout the episode of him just regurgitating all these things from books and everything that he's read, like he has the mind of a child. And seeing him kind of interact with Juliet like this is kind of wild, because it's, even though he's a grown man, he's been there for an extended period of time.
Right. There's something about him that is very childlike. Back in the old days, we would have said he was touched in a way in the head. But you can see what the show is doing is that there's like some underdevelopment from like a social skill standpoint.
He makes a mention too that he's not going to talk about his eye. So like obviously we know the guy has a haunted past, but he's heavily featured in the books in terms of how he gets into the vault. So I'm assuming they're kind of playing at, we're going to get maybe not a whole episode devoted to it, but I would assume we're going to get a flashback that kind of shows maybe a younger Solo and how he came into the vault.
So we'll get a single episode specifically on Solo. I wonder what we would call that episode if it was just one episode about one character and his name was Solo. They would call that like a 1-0 episode. I don't know. I'll kick it around, Tom. I'll come up with something clever to call that
ChatGPT.
Single episode. Yeah, Well, we are ChatGPT, Tom. We're not actually here doing this podcast, if you'll recall. He keeps trying to bring up this instrument, and I kind of, I'm a man of the world. I know a lot about air-blowing instruments, so I kind of knew what he was getting at, but I thought it was so funny that she kept shutting him down. And he's like, no, you've got to, and then they're in the room with it, and he starts to play, and just how annoyed she is. I love Rebecca Ferguson. She's great, and our boy Solo is also great in these scenes. It is fun just to watch them. And he's trying to be helpful. At the same time, he's playing some of the most annoying music on Earth.
I mean, it's an organ, so it's going to be annoying. Right. But I like when eventually they realize, oh, yeah, we're going to take this apart and use it. He's like, oh, well, you can put it back together, right? Like, again, still kind of that childish mindset where Rebecca Ferguson is thinking about survival and Juliet, whereas he's thinking about his toy.
Yeah, she's going to break his toy. Can she put it back together? I like that she's like, maybe. Well, just play it one last time. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Tom, how do you feel about scuba diving with equipment that you've never used before, and all of the things that go into this? What are your Tom? What's your thoughts on drowning? Pro or anti?
I'm anti-drowning. Listen, we've got a lot of modern technology in scuba stuff. You won't catch me scuba diving ever in my life. No, thank you.
No. Equipment fails. As I've gotten older, this is a common theme. Equipment fails, and anything that is a breathing apparatus, it will also fail at some point. But I guess they were just foreshadowing kind of what happens here, but she's preparing to do the dive, and he starts freaking out about, like, hey, maybe I left like any of us, did I lock the car? Did I leave the stove on? Did I grab enough squinches for the ride so that I don't get squelched, so this was all them just foreshadowing what's going to happen when she, was under the water, right?
Yeah, for sure. Of him just freaking out that the vault door's open. And yeah, I think my wife immediately said, oh, that's me with the garage door.
Did she then pause the show and go make sure that the garage door was closed?
She checked our app, yeah.
Oh, look at you fancy computer people with your garage door apps.
Solo just needs the app.
Our garage door is on a hand crank, so you always know that you've closed it because your hands are all greasy and you're all sweaty. It's like a drawbridge over here. Anyways, I have so many questions for someone who hates water, can't swim, has never scuba dived before. Bold move to tie yourself to a heavy weight and plunge into the water without testing anything? I don't know. Is bold the right word, Tom?
I mean, probably I would at least have brought a knife and not have to rely on making my own little shank from the, I don't know, what she reached out of the water. I just found this whole thing just terrifying. Like, and it's so well filmed of her being like inches away from the surface, but just cannot survive. I feel like Rebecca Ferguson was like channeling her inner Mission Impossible training, because I feel like she did that in one of those, right? Where she could be in water for minutes at a time.
Yeah, we thought Tom Cruise was going to swim in after her and breathe air into her mouth. Okay. I've got so many questions on this, because what you would initially do is you would tie the rope to where you were jumping in from so that you could pull yourself out of the water, because you don't know what's going to happen. You're not a swimmer, whatever. You'd start there, and then you'd grab the hose from Johnny B. Solo, and you'd get in the water with the hose, and you'd breathe underwater a little bit. This lady ties herself to a weight, throws it in the water, and then jumps in after it like a crazy person. This is like the hole in outer range. Throw some dirt, throw a shovel, throw some other things in that spectacular space hole before you throw your body into it. I wasn't sure if this was just like, hey, these people are ignorant of like water and drowning. Like they don't live around this. But she's clearly scared of it. So wouldn't you, I don't know, Tom, I wish there was a phrase for dipping your toe in the water first. This just seemed, it seemed out of character for a character that is very smart. And I get it, for the show, it was a lot of like tension, and this was kind of the action sequence of the episode. And it was very well shot, but it just seemed like, I mean, Solo's just going to be there. Her body's going to be like 3 feet down, like still tethered, and he's just going to poke her with a stick and be like, all right, I'll come back later for you. Like, I don't know.
I'm with you, though. I feel like there was this scene. There's another scene later when we get to Silo 18, which I thought was kind of just poorly delivered or just kind of goofy and maybe just done as like a showism, because I'm with you. I think they needed or wanted a little bit more action in these sequences, and it's not just her kind of preparing. Because I think the next episode is like another dive that I can't remember what it's like, descent or thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Juliet doing additional diving. So
this just becomes her thing. She's like, listen, every time I sleep, I remember being dragged underwater by that weight, and I loved it. So I'm just going to keep doing
Chase that
this.
feeling.
And everyone's like, why do you keep throwing yourself in the water with that giant weight? When she couldn't move the weight under the water, I thought it magnetized the ground, and I was like, oh, that's pretty dope and terrible. But it was just really heavy. And I haven't spent a lot of time moving large metal lumps at the bottom of, I don't know, bodies of water. But it didn't seem like fun, but it also seemed like this was on her. Make the rope long enough. Make the rope long enough so that you can get to the surface. And then when you need to go down, you just climb the rope down. You know? I can't stop thinking of good ideas, Tom. I don't know what's going on here. Anyways, she doesn't die, but it's pretty cool. Also, better ways to open lockers. That's all. I don't know.
Oh, man. She just karate chops these. These are great.
The thinnest metal lockers anyone's ever dealt with. Listen, I've been thrown in lockers and locked in lockers. You cannot karate chop your way out of them. All right? You just have to wait till the librarian walks down the hall, laughs at you, and then goes and gets the janitor, who also laughs at you. And then finally your parents call because it's after hours. So, yeah, you can't karate chop your way through lockers. Did she find a suit? I felt this, like, she gets the third one, she's crying. She finds a suit, right? Because she did not show the happy emotion I was looking for. She just kept being sad.
Yeah, it was like the relief, because she tried 3 of them. The first 2 were empty, and then she finds the last one. Because I think she's wearing it in these later scenes. It's like a red fireman suit outfit. Yeah.
Right. She looks like she burns books in Fahrenheit 451 or whatever it is. Did you find it concerning that when she was executing the opening of the lockers, she did not shout karate every time she, as you yourself being a 3rd level black belt, every time I've seen you take a dude down in the streets, you always shout karate before you kick or karate chop.
Correct. It's either karate or kia.
Okay.
Either would be acceptable.
Interesting. Yeah. Kia. Typically, the kia is enough for people just to run away. It's like when you hear a gun being racked, they just hear the noise and run. Everyone gets scared when Tom and his Kias come. And I don't mean the car.
Yeah. That's where they got their name.
Solo, a guy who's been alone since he's 11, not a very good helper. That's what I discovered. They did make this where he was like, "Oh, I've got to go see if the vault's like she hadn't come out of the water yet." And I was like, "All right, show, thanks for." And then she popped out. Like I thought they were gonna make us, I don't know, want it a little more, like be scared a little bit more. But much like Shamu, she comes out of that water just beautifully, lands on her belly on the dock, and he feeds her a fish. It was pretty incredible. This all leads to the lockout of the vault. What are we learning here, Tom? Are we learning that she's paying attention to the keypad? Are we learning that this guy can't remember 4 numbers that I'm assuming he's been using for conservatively 30 years? What do we learn from this lockout?
I don't know how often he's coming out of the thing, right? But he's also just incredibly flustered, and like I kind of like what they did of just making him kind of nervous and then saying like, oh, if I do this a 3rd time, maybe they're hinting at that this thing could be locked out if you try it 3 times. And maybe that's what they were trying to do, like in maybe the flashback we might get of the door being like chiseled and burned and that kind of stuff. Like maybe somebody else tried it and got it locked up. I don't really know, but I like the idea of this giving Juliet kind of a moment to be able to have like a heart-to-heart, her explaining that she's scared and that she doesn't want to be alone, and probably coming to the realization here quickly because she's such a smart character of how long this guy has been alone.
Sure. She is smart when it comes to reading people's emotions. She is not smart when it comes to weights, ropes, and drowning, Tom. That's true. No, I guess you're right. This is an emotional moment for the two of them. You know, I think she's realizing he has the mind of a child, or at least the maturity of one. And so she's got to kind of talk him up. And they do give us hints of her kind of looking over his shoulder when he's putting the number in. Or was that just the sneaky sneak in me that wanted to know what the code was?
I didn't pick up on that, but it's possible.
Okay. I also think that us being told that 3 times is a lockout leads to a moment where maybe she gets the keypad, she punches in the wrong number twice, and she threatens to punch it in a 3rd time if he doesn't open the door for her. So I think we now have leverage over Solo, you know? But that's just where me as a terrible person goes, because Solo seems like someone I would like to take advantage of because he's got a lot of cool stuff about elephants inside that vault room. You know what I'm talking about. There's probably, there's some stew in there too.
Oh yeah, chicken or beef, depending on your want. But yeah, always find an angle. I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, that's where I live. A lot of animal talk in this episode, Tom, which I know you love, talking about animals and all of their body parts and the body parts that you get to touch and stuff. So yeah,
that's
sure
our other
you
podcast.
All that.
Yeah. There are other animal podcasts. I don't know what that one's called.
It's called A Group of Blind Men See an Elephant, a podcast with Julian and Tom, where we describe different parts of elephants on Spotify. Brought to you by Squelch Cherry Diet. That's the cherry flavored Squelch, which also has no diets in it. No calories. What does diet soda have in it? I don't know. Let me look at the one I'm drinking. Can't believe we're doing this during the day and I have to drink soda instead of alcohol.
Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks Daily Fantasy Sports app today and use code FIELD and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
with that, let's go from Silo 17 to Silo 18, the luckiest Silo, the most attractive Bluth, Lucille Bluth. We've been rewatching Arrested Development, Tom, and that show is nothing short of incredible. I just want to shout that out right
Happy
now.
for you.
So Silo 18, we have Knox and Shirley down at the wall of names written in chalk, and he's like Sherlock Holmesing it, which I'm going to clear everyone out. We're going to go iso ball. Tom, that's a basketball term. I don't know how I know that, but we're going to let you iso ball as you talk about written words on screen and detectoristing.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I feel like just Knox making this connection now seemed quite silly. Like if it was a little bit more obscure on the wall, then sure. But I mean, it said started with food shortage in the farms, blamed on mechanical. It had a bunch of people's names like work or factory workers shut down, trash chute fire. Like, yeah, man, if you just think about this for 2 seconds, you can realize these names mean more than just that. It was a bit silly.
He's like, listen, I've got this figured out. You see how it says it started with a food shortage in the farms and they blame mechanical? I think this means there was a food shortage in the farms and people blamed. And Shirley's like, the uppers? And he's like, no, they blame mechanical. And she's like, oh, mechanical. How do you... He's like, because it says mechanical right there in the words clearly written on this. I'm with you. This one seemed... I'm a little bit confused in a show when people are discovering their world like at the same time the audience is. Mm-hmm. It's like, how old are Knox and Shirley? 30s, 40s, 100s? I don't know how old they are, but they've spent a lot of time in this silo. You'd think they'd know like everything, everywhere, all the time. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm with you. It didn't bother me, but I do see what you're saying. And as a guy that loves the written word, I can see why you got just furious.
True. I just feel like I like Knox, I like Shirley as characters, but I feel like some of the writing that they kind of give them is a little bit kind of wonky and not my favorite.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised. Honestly, I thought they were going to be relatively minor characters, but they've kind of given them more to do, which I am enjoying. So they start talking about, they're like, why is the finger always pointed at mechanical? It does seem a little bit strange that the people that run the oxygen and the lighting are the ones that the finger is always pointed at, but I don't know if that's because then mechanical gets upset and they go beat people with wrenches. And I can't ask you because you know, or at least you have theories, so I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to say, don't point the blame at the guy that's holding the large metal monkey wrench, because that person will typically beat you upside the head with it. So,
yeah, and they prove in this episode that they have control of the power of this silo, right? So right. I'm with you. I don't understand the logic of saying, okay, if there's an uprising, blame mechanical. And I mean, maybe they're more out of sight, out of mind for the normal people of the silo, but your silo doesn't exist if they don't exist. So is the idea that they're calling mechanical's bluff? Like either mechanical takes everybody down or we just blame them and get new mechanical? I don't get how previous rebellions were squashed and then the silo was still able to run.
Right. This leads to them being like, let's demand the truth. We're going to go talk to the judge. Judge Reinhold. My name is Judge Reinhold. That's Arrested Development, folks. Knox has gone from like, I don't want a rebellion, I don't want a revolution, I don't want to do these things, to let's demand truth because we're mechanical. The thing I will give the show is that maybe his rejection of like the Shirley revolution in the beginning where she's just trying to get everyone rebel, like he's trying to do it in a more like pointed and concise manner, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't sure if this was just a wild swing from the character, like changing his motivation to him just wanting to do it in a different way.
Yeah, I don't know if I understand either, because he's like, I think he even asked her, like, what do you want other than revenge? And I guess they determined that they want the truth, and now they're going to send the judge a strongly worded letter, because this does escalate things quite a bit.
No, that's to the warden. The warden receives a strongly worded letter, which he reads by nothing but natural light, because Michael won't give him that lamp. So They really push this Coop death. They're like, for Cooper, and I was like, wait, who's Cooper?
Who?
I woke my children up. I was like, hey guys, do you remember who Cooper was in this show? And they were like, you reek of alcohol, leave us alone. And so, I don't. Once again, it's a showism. They killed Coop, who we have no emotional attachment to.
Well, did they kill Coop? I feel like we got a little bit of a twist of maybe he didn't get shot in like the heart and the body's been moved.
No. Coop got shot in the dome. I think the person they talk about being shot was Patrick Kennedy, right?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, now you've
I'm
got me
confused.
very confused. Okay, actually, that was the most confusing part of this episode. So let's pin that. Let's put a pin in that. Much like we did with Ted Lasso. We're still going to get to those pins, folks, so don't write us any strongly worded letters written by Nothing But Natural Light. Okay, so we're all a little bit confused by Knox and Shirley and what these guys are trying to do. Great. I'm glad I'm not the only one. We have the other side of this silo, which is Bernard, Sims, and like Sims kind of wanting to go heavy-handed. Bernard's like, no, we need to massage this. We'll let them air their grievances to the judge. It's tough not to do it every time. My name is Judge. And let things cool down. And then this is where we have Sims like putting his cards on the table of like, hey, I'm watching you. I know you're working with Meadows. I don't know why Bernard's surprised by this. Sims has all the access to the cameras just like he does. But this leads to the conversation with Judge Meadows and Bernard where she's like, listen, I just want my suit from you. I want nothing more than my suit. I'm going to meet with these people. And I think this is where Lucas Hedges is brought back up. And for the life of me, Tom, I could not remember who Lucas Hedges was until he showed up in the room. And I was like, oh, Star Guy, you're supposed to be at the mines. Which I'm fascinated by that conversation. But all of this is intercut with the Billings storyline, which it almost feels like Billings, the actor, couldn't be there at the same time as everyone else. He's just like in his own show. But him and Hanks, they're investigating the firebombing and the shooting, and they are trying to find the body. Now, the body, I'm assuming, here's how I thought this worked, Tom. I thought they were trying to find the body for the bearded guy, and the bearded guy was Patrick Kennedy, the gentleman, the actor that was in Band of Brothers. Not the sheriff from Silo 17, but the kind of anarchist bearded guy that throws the firebomb. I thought that was the body they were looking for but they didn't show us in the last episode what happened to him. The only person we saw shot, and I thought it was in the dome, was Cooper. So
it wasn't in the dome because he had like blood on his chest. So yeah, it wasn't in the head.
Okay, it wasn't in the head. So we think they have faked the death of Cooper in order to, I don't know. Now I'm confused as to what body.
And maybe I was confused and now confusing you because that makes more sense because to have Cooper to essentially not be dead wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But maybe because
Tom, all we care about right now is that Coop's dead. I don't know if you listened to Knox and Shirley in the last scene, but all we care about is that Coop died, and we were all sad about it. I know that I was sad, Tom. Cooper for Cooper, you know?
You were.
Justice and Cooper for Cooper.
Yeah, you ran that kids' youth basketball program, Hoops for Coops, right?
Hoops for Coops to raise money for... because we needed to do some stuff to his head because he got shot in the dome. But now I've been informed he got shot in the chest. So Coops for Coop is a failure, and the team didn't win anything.
But Kennedy was holding on to Coop, right? So it was maybe the idea that it went through Coop, and now Kennedy got it in the shoulder. I don't know what we're supposed to believe, and I'm sure we'll get it here pretty quickly. But either Patrick Kennedy is missing, or he took the body per Sims's direction, because we still don't know what Sims told Patrick Kennedy to really do outside of throw a Molotov cocktail and who knows what else.
In that episode, let's remember this together. Mind meld, Tom. Mind meld. Form of memories. We put our pinkies together, and that's what happens. He threw the Molotov cocktail. That retired Raider shot Cooper. I don't think we see Patrick Kennedy do anything but run. In this episode, the way it is pitched to us is almost as if the Raiders shot Cooper, and then they also shot Kennedy, and that's why two bodies went to the morgue. And that's why but no one identified the bearded guy that died as Kennedy because everyone's trying to figure out who the bearded guy is. Like Billings and them are. I mean, if this guy didn't have a big beard, we'd have no idea who he was.
Well, we know there were 2 shots, but we think the first shot missed entirely. So if the second shot hit Coop, then it might have gone through and hit the other guy. I don't know. I mean, better
Kennedy
podcasters would have gone back and
the way
watched.
the last episode was shot. There's definitely someone on the grassy knoll, and when Coop got hit, he went back and to the left, Tom. Back and to the left, just like when Keith Hernandez got spit on in that Seinfeld episode. I don't know if you remember that.
Classic.
But let's move on since the details are hazy, and this is what happens when you get shot in the face. You forget things, you know? You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We have a sojourn up the silo with Knox, Walker, Supply, who I believe is named Carla, and then Shirley. And the 4 of these folks are going up, and at one point they run into a sheriff who's like, oh, we're trying to protect you, but not really. I thought that was a helpful moment. And they are all going to meet with Judge Meadows in order to plead their case. I want to talk about this here. They're talking about like the differences in color, and it pays off in the end, but there's got to be a better way to turn off a light switch than throwing a ball down the silo. I mean, what if you miss the switch? Like, you got to have really good aim for that ball to hit the switch to turn it off, right?
It's impressive. Yeah, it was definitely a tease where they talked about, like, I know the difference between red and green. I'm like, well, what does that ultimately mean? And I mean, I like the concept and idea. It's a cool, like, showism. But I think in reality, if you try to drop a ball 130 stories, keeping that ball to go perfectly straight down and not, like, spin and hit another floor midway through, seems unlikely, but it's still fun.
Tom, I know that if you drop that ball, it would hit 3 children in the head because you cannot kick a ball, throw a ball without hitting a child in the dome. The only thing I thought about is when they drop it when it's dark, is someone from the below being like, you killed him! It hit him in the head! And it's like, yeah, how do they know the second ball's coming if it's completely dark out? Like, what are we doing?
Headlamps.
It was cool. Like, I liked what they did, but very impractical. Although, maybe I'm just going to carry around rubber bouncy balls in my house and throw them at my children when I want them to do something.
Red ball to turn off the light. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, let's talk the Sims piece of this. We have Sims and his wife who they are constantly in some form of, like, political intrigue. And he wants scheming, thank you. He wants to impeach the judge. What is their ultimate goal here?
I feel like Sims is just trying to get back in the good graces of Bernard. Like, I don't think he's trying to necessarily throw Meadows under the bus or throw Bernard under the bus. I think he's just trying to get back into that shadow position. Well,
he's trying to get rid of Meadows. And he thinks Bernard is leaning on Meadows as like his co-conspirator. So by getting rid of her, all of this is... Well, he also doesn't seem very fond of Bernard. So is he just trying to take Bernard's job?
I don't think so. I think he still wants to be like the underling to him. Because like you can't just take Bernard's job. Like, well, I mean, maybe Sims thinks he can. But there's a lot more that Bernard knows clearly than Sims. And Sims just wants to be in the know.
First off, this is Common here, Tom. Common's not going to be anyone's underling ever. He's Common. He's going to be in charge, and he will be the silo president, elected or unelected. I don't know if you heard him give a speech at the end of this episode, but Common is rad. All right, let's move on to the Lucas Hedges case, which I know we all had it on our bingo card that we hoped this character would come back. Tom, where's the mine? Tell me right now, where's the mine? How do you get to the mine?
I'm sure somebody's going to yell at me, but I'm quite certain the mines is not in the books. It's a showism. Like sending a character to there. Like when you said that, like, oh, maybe this is just sending them to the death, but they're telling them to go into the mine to be a little more PC about it. But like Lucas as a character is a little bit more...
I think the show's worried about killing people.
PC. I guess that's fair. But Lucas is a much more... a fleshed out character, and he's involved quite a bit more. So I'm glad we're kind of getting him back, but I do think the capacity in which we're getting him back will be different from the books.
Okay. Yeah, because like the whole thing is we're in an enclosed silo. It's like an encapsulated, like we
Right.
are in the silo. Where is this mine? Like it can't be straight down. It's water straight down, right? So
That's the problem, right? When they introduce that concept of them going underneath the like bowels of mechanical and that being like the end of this drill that drilled it plus all this water. Yeah, I'm with you. Like maybe there's a tunnel or a door somewhere down there that allows them to mine, but again, not in the books. This is, I think, a showism.
yeah. There's just like a balcony with no railing and then a wooden sign with an arrow that says "to the mine," and they just walk off and die.
Whoa!
I'll send you a postcard. All right, so she's talking with Lucas, and then she sends the guards away, and I was like, "Ooh, secret meeting! I love it." And Meadows is so mean. She's like, "Hey, what do you think about those lights in the sky?" And he's like, "I think they're lights, and we travel." And she's like, "Guess what? They're stars. They're burning gas. Also, you have to go to the mine for 5 years. See ya." Like, I thought this was so weird. Also, like, how did he find out that the Earth was round? The Earth's not round. It's flat. This doesn't make any sense. How he's like, I don't know. They got to him too, Tom. He's a round earther. I don't know what's happening.
I was watching the scene like, oh, Joy's gonna love this. They're explaining how round the Earth is. But yeah, I didn't get it either. It's like she almost found like a kindred spirit in him about like the astronomy and wanting to know more, and she immediately starts telling him and divulging all this cool stuff about astronomy, only to immediately slightly reduce his sentence, but then say later to Bernard, "Oh, this guy's not going to last more than a year. He's not going to survive in the mines." Like I don't understand her motivation here outside of just toying with the guy.
No, I would argue most of what Meadows does in this episode doesn't make a whole lot of sense for who she's interacting with. But I found this brutal in terms of just being like, hey, not 10 years, but 5 years. Also, space is real and you're never going to see it again. Have fun. Like, don't fall into the mine too far. This all leads to perfect timing show. Impeach Meadow banners being rolled out at her window. So their timing is impeccable. It's like when the news station plays, the story about the murder at the exact moment everyone's gathered in the living room talking about not getting murdered. I don't know. We have Carla and Walker having their moment in this beautiful garden with the lovely plants and the fountain that they drink from, and they have this moment where they're talking about wasted time. And I was like, speaking of wasted time, don't stop in the garden, keep walking up those stairs. But I do find these characters interesting. Like, you'd like to know their backstory. I'm sure Apple has a spinoff of 4 seasons of the Carla and Walker show, but they do address like, hey, you had never left your shop for 25 years. Now all of a sudden you're walking everywhere. She's like, well, my nickname's Walker. And Carla's like, yes, it is. And Knox and Shirley, I also found this conversation interesting, just from the human need to explore and like go to the unknown. And we don't have it anymore because video games and TV keep us in our house and we're slowly dying. But back in the day, when we humans cared about things, you would see the unknown and you'd want to go out there. And I thought the motivation of Knox and Shirley being like, now that we know you can go out and it's out there, like, would you volunteer to go out? And yes, I would go in a heartbeat. And I thought that was just the motivation to explore was interesting to me.
Yeah, and like their idea, like what they want is to be able to do these exploratory missions and walk around and try to figure out more, which I think is a very reasonable thing to ask if somebody did actually walk over the hill. I do want to point out though, because you mentioned like there was a sheriff that kind of came and talked to him talking about an escort, but the other lady that was with the sheriff was, I think, like not like the secretary, but she was like one of the ones that was in the sheriff office with like Holston back in like first season, and I think she was the one that clocked the screen, like when it flickered very quickly on one of like the cafeteria screens. She was the one that saw it. So I was kind of interested to see that they brought her back, and I'm wondering if she's going to kind of pop back up again with some sort of revelatory comment or note.
Well, she's the one that's kind of helpful and unhelpful when Juliet takes over, right?
Yes,
She's the transition from... Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, because she's like, oh, I'm not a sheriff. And I was like, why did we I clocked that character, and yeah, to your point, I'm assuming it'd be weird if, unless her contract was like, hey, I need to appear in one episode of season 2. I do think we're going to get more from her, and I think she knows probably a lot more, having been in that position in the sheriff's office. So.
Possibly, yeah.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back on the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
We have Bernard and Meadows having a conversation, and they're talking about like why Mechanical's coming up to meet with her and how Mechanical wants to explore outside. They want to build suits that work now that they know that Juliet went over, the hill. And he brings up the impeachment stuff. And one thing this show there's a lot happening for them to also throw in this, like, hey, Sims is trying to get people to want to impeach her. She thinks Bernard is the one that's, like, putting out the impeach message. Bernard's like, it wasn't me, but then he's like, knows it's Sims. All of this political intrigue, for it being between 3 people, I still found a little bit, like, unnecessary and confusing, mainly because I don't know what Sims wants, and I'm, to be honest, still a little bit confused as to what Bernard's doing, and most certainly confused as to what Meadow thought was going to happen here. But this leads to her being up, hey, before I'm impeached, I'm out of here. I'm gonzos, okay? I'm going to be in that suit, riding my motorcycle over the hill. And Bernard's like, what's a motorcycle? And she's like, oh, wasn't supposed to tell you about motorcycles. And Bernard's like, hey, before you leave, I'd like to invite you to a very nice, friendly dinner where nothing bad's going to happen. And guess what? I'll give you the one thing you're waiting on. It'll be there at the dinner. So you have to come to the dinner. Will you come to the dinner? It's going to be safe. There'll be mushrooms. The mushrooms won't be poisoned. And Meadows is like, yeah, this all seems good. Yeah, makes sense. I haven't seen you or known you to murder anyone before.
No.
So, yeah, let's do that. And she makes a joke about hoping the mob doesn't throw her over the rail. Terrible timing, Meadows. Just terrible. Like,
Yeah, too soon.
Too soon.
We've already had characters go over the rails.
yeah. Also, like, it's very much in play. People are, like, mobs are angry, and people are getting murdered. People are dying. I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, she makes this speech. Well, I mean, we'll get to the dinner, I guess, in this next scene. But she makes
Let's
this
be in the
speech
dinner,
about-
Tom. Let's you and I
Yeah.
sit down, have some, I don't know, weird silo bird and mushrooms. I'm not eating the mushrooms, though, although I love sauteed mushrooms. I know you hate vegetables, but yeah,
No,
go on,
worst.
Tom. We're at dinner.
But she just makes this comment about, like, I don't know what's actually when she got poisoned or whatever, but they seem to have more of a romantic relationship than maybe they previously let on. And I think you had hinted at that from the first couple episodes. So maybe she just thought that because of their past, he wouldn't go to this length and do this to her. But obviously, from Bernard's perspective, she's just going to use her as a martyr. He can't just have her go off in the sunset without anybody knowing or seeing why she's gone. So I mean, that's my only thinking as to why she would have trusted him in this situation.
Yeah, there's like a hint at not only a shadow relationship, but also I think he wanted to pursue a romantic relationship, and she just like couldn't be tethered to him, and so she disappeared. He says like 4 days, and then you came back and quit, and so these people have known each other a long time, and yes, I guess if he still holds a candle for her, then maybe she did feel safe, but just with everything that's going on, and it feels like Bernard is kind of gone like quietly unhinged, so I just wouldn't eat the food, They certainly don't drink the wine, right?
I feel like it was kind of a jerk move where he says, like, oh, I poisoned the mushroom. I didn't do it in the wine because I didn't think you'd drink it. Like, yeah, she's already told you she's trying to be sober. It was kind of a jerk to even put wine in front of her.
Yeah, I would say the murdering was more the jerk move, Tom. But sure, the dig at her trying to get off of alcohol, quit alcohol. Yeah, sure. That's what was okay. I need to touch on this because this felt so thrown into this conversation. So she realizes she's been poisoned, and all of a sudden, Tom, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you ever poison me, the last thing I'm going to do is start like spilling my soul to you. I'm probably going to find the heaviest or sharpest object and try and insert it into your body so that you also die. Like, I don't know. She goes all in, like, she just starts spilling secrets, and she, like, I guess the betrayal is just so deep, and maybe there is a love between these two. I thought it was really well acted, but just from a writing standpoint, they start throwing some stuff at us where she just starts, she talks about, oh, you know, on the hard drive, there was a letter written by Salvador Quinn 140 years ago. I decoded it. He's like, what's on the hard drive? This got thrown out so quickly that if you blinked and you didn't have subtitles, it would have seemed like the ramblings of someone who had just found out they were poisoned and going to die, and they decided to make something up. Help me understand. Was this more clear to you having read the book, or did this feel so shoehorned into a weird moment where they're like, hey, we're going to give you guys one more mystery that you've got to go chase down?
I think that's essentially what's going on. Like, none of this rings a bell from the book that I read, so maybe it's in there, but I don't know. Have her spill the beans on all this, and like even the cheesy stuff about, oh, there was a code, I deciphered it. Oh, I can't tell you about that. Like, well, then why are you telling him about the first portion of it? Like,
I've got a secret, but I can't tell you that secret. All right, yeah. Okay.
The only thing I feel like is they're just setting up a flashback of maybe, because she talks about like, oh, I couldn't spend 25 years with you, or why I did this 25 years ago. Maybe they're going to go back to that point in time of her learning something about him, about the silo. I don't know what it is, but there's so much set up here that there has to be a flashback to why this all comes to be. Because we can't get the hard drive, right? He's already destroyed the hard drive, so that's already gone.
Yeah, unless he destroyed something that wasn't the hard drive. I did, in that scene where he smashes it, I always thought, well, it would be smart if sleight of hand he destroyed something that looked like a hard drive and kept the actual hard drive, but I don't get the sense, based on his reaction to, oh, did you find out what was on the hard drive and she spills this, I don't feel like he has access to it.
Agreed.
I don't know. I hope there's a flashback episode and all of these characters are just played by like young hot people. I've never seen an episode of Euphoria, but I'm assuming they'll get all of the actors and actresses on Euphoria that will play different, characters. It'd be great to see Zendaya. Yeah, that's the one, and Sydney Sweeney show up in an episode of The Silo. But
the former mayor and then the young judge.
Yes, that's how those characters would be played. Why is she such a calm dyer? I don't. And then, was this just an Apple VR commercial that we saw? They were like, listen, not only can you play video games on our Apple device, you can also die peacefully in them. I'm like, what was this? This is beautiful, but so weird that I was like, I don't know. To steal your this was wonky. Like, I did not know. I did not feel sad. I was just like, what is going on? I've been to Costa Rica. Those monkeys are terrifying. Like, I mean,
obviously this is playing for dramatic effect of like the dying lovers, and he's kind of giving her one last glimpse at the outside world. But I mean, you just can't look cool in a VR headset. So to me, it's all just wildly cheesy.
Shots fired. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Those of you that look cool in a VR headset, please prove it to us. You can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. Subject line, sweet VR. Like, please, just attention, Tom. Oh, man. Challenge accepted, my friend.
But yeah, I mean, it's essentially just like an Apple Vision Pro thrown on her. And yeah, I don't know. This didn't play very dramatic for me. I get what they were going for, but I was just kind of giggling at her staring off into this big black box.
I honestly could feel Tim Robbins being like, is this for real? Like, is this what my career has become? Like, I was an extra in Top Gun. Like, really, this is what I'm doing here? I can't. I don't know. Because he's acting alone. She's like hidden by the VR, so she doesn't have to do much. And he's like, oh, look here. Do you see the trees? Oh, look over there. Do you see the monkeys? I was like, oh, sweet Lord. This is like drama class 101. It was great. All I could think about was, I'm pretty sure poison is a pretty gruesome death. Like, there's some choking and some foaming at the mouth and all that. This death was just like, the show's like, poisoning can be beautiful. This was like the poison companies were like, hey, you guys know what's not that bad? Dying from poison, which is our other sponsor, Squinch Poison Flavor Diet. If you want to end it quickly, but have a nice, I don't know, citrusy flavor as you die, try Quinch. Is it Quinch? Squinch? Poison.
Wasn't that like a little SNL commercial with Will Ferrell where it was like dog chow rat poison? It was like just dog food and it had a tiny font that said rat poison.
No, I have not seen that one. I would never steal from the great Will Ferrell. Anyways, all right. So we've got ourselves a body, Tom. We've got a body, and while we know the murderer, the rest of the world doesn't. Sims has to come in and take care of the body. I like that Bernard's like, do it just like I said. I'm going to be out getting a squinch. Don't call me. And he leaves. Sims got to do the dirty work. I've got so many questions about the murder investigation that's going to go on, but let's very quickly. We have a crowd is gathered to stop Mechanical because everyone's like, oh, Mechanical's going to rush the hatch. Like, I don't think that's how it works. Like, are we really that scared of Mechanical? They have the standoff with the guy, and so they turn off the lights by dropping the red ball that Neo eats in the Matrix.
Yes.
And that causes a power outage. I mean, not great infrastructure if a ball hitting the ground will turn off all the power. It's like a clapper, but a ball dropper.
Ball drop off. Ball drop down.
Please don't write me. I know it's just a signal for someone to turn off but it's more fun to think the ball itself actually does it. Anyways, Bernard's like, listen, I'll let you go see the body of Meadows if you, and they're like, what, body of Meadows? And he's like, oh, no. I meant, I'll let you go talk to the judge, his body. No. I'll let you go talk to the judge. And they're like, it's kind of suspicious the way you're talking about her in the past tense, but he's like, you got to turn the power back on. So then they drop another ball that I'm assuming is a different color.
Green.
In the dark, Tom. How could they tell the color?
I just feel like you're not just the color scheme, but you're kind of playing your hand about, hey, if you want to turn on and off the lights, just drop these two different things that you just saw me drop off. Like,
what if Bernard was like, hey, take that bag from her and give me all the balls? And then he just starts juggling with them. I don't know. This was outrageous. It's certainly someone in the writer's room was like, hey, it'd be dope. And they were like, oh, man. Cocaine's great and dropping balls are great. Like, let's do this. Oh, man. All right. So the lights come back on, but only Knox and Shirley are allowed to go into the room. And they walk in. Meadows has a knife in her chest. Sims is like, go ahead, talk. And Knox is like, well, Judge, Shirley and I here. Great honor to meet you. We would like to go. Is she okay? Is she sleeping? All right, I'll just keep talking. She can hear me? All right, great. We would like to go outside and do some exploring, Your Honor. And then 10 minutes later, it dawns on them that she's been stabbed in the chest and they're being framed for her murder. Murder.
And I think even as they're leaving, Sims was going to go after him or something, like catch him. But then Bernard's like, no, the silo needs to take care of this. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely a story, show writing thing. They're like, Dr. Evil's son could have walked in and just been like, I've got a gun in my room. I can shoot them right now. And Bernard's like, no. Let's chase these guys for a couple of episodes. And then he looks into the camera.
He needs to make a show of it. Bernard needs to make a show of it. And the silo needs to be, because you can't just, I think it's like what he did with Juliet going out. Like, you can't just try to ration this for people. You have to kind of give them a a feasible enough lie that they can kind of flesh it out themselves.
I
Otherwise,
don't
it
think
won't stick.
I mean, I don't think it is that crazy for Common to kill both Knox and Shirley, walk out to the crowd and go, "They killed the meadow." No, they killed the judge. Judge, my name is Judge. And obviously I'm not Common, so I can't do him justice, but he's like, "They killed the judge, and then I killed them, and the rest of Mechanical is in an uprising. Go get justice." Like, I don't know that plays any differently than, hey, we're doing a really bad job of protecting the judge. They killed her in front of us, and they just ran down the stairs. Go get them. I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know.
We love these characters. I do like when Knox and Shirley kind of like leave and they kind of walk slowly. We're like, all right, let's keep going. Don't look scared. And then that one lady's response is like, "Well, I wasn't until you said that."
Right.
So good.
Yeah, I don't want to play my hand to current news events, but walking after a murder, not a lot of people pay attention, you know?
Oh, goodness.
So we're a strange place on Earth these days. All right, Common gives his great speech. Tom, if Common did this in front of me, I would murder anyone. You know,
I would rabble like crazy.
I would join the mob. I would be the biggest mob of all the mob, you know? None of these people are like, "Wait, what happened?" Like, let's ask a couple of questions. They're all just like, "Justice!"
I'll wait for the trial.
Yeah, like, what? I don't know. Anyways. So they're all running. We pan up as this crowd of orcs is running down into the mines of Moria, essentially. But all those stairs, I was like, "Oh, mobbing seems very tiresome. Like, you gotta run a lot and do a lot of yelling." How long until the justice chant peters out? Like, at what point is someone like, you get kind of offbeat and it just kind of collapses, like when you're at a concert or something and people start clapping and then the beat gets off and then you all just stop clapping collectively? How many floors until they stop chanting justice, Tom?
I would say at least 3 floors, and then it's gone. But then they'll get like a second wind, and then by like floor 93, maybe they'll start it back up. But then it's only gonna last for like one stairwell. And
then someone's like, "Who's Justin? Why are we looking for Justin?" And the guy's like, "No, Justine." And they're like, "Oh, Justine." Anyways. I enjoyed this episode. There's some silliness in there, but it's still well done. It looks great. And we have how many more? 4 more, Tom, until we find out where the mines are. That's all I want to know, Tom. Where are the mines?
Will we visit the mines at some point? I don't know. I'd assume we probably will, but I'm pretty sure this is a 10-episode arc, so we're getting close to halfway through. It's been fun.
Sure. And as our heroes are running downstairs, Tom, you made a great point of what they should have done, and I'm going to give you the floor.
Oh, yeah. Just drop another one of those red apples or red balls or whatever and turn the lights off if you got a bunch of mob chasing you. Like, You have the means, so they don't play that card. But I guess maybe it's not safe to run downstairs with the lights off, so maybe they're protecting themselves. I don't know.
Well, Mechanical, the nice thing about being in Mechanical is you get a flashlight. No one else gets flashlights. And headlamps at that. All right. Well, for those of you that are still with us, you can reach out to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts and theories if we missed something. If you can clear up the dead body, the 2-body problem that we had in this episode, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. We do appreciate hearing from people. Big fan of N. James 9028. Who left us a comment that was like, "I actually find you guys hilarious." Thanks, James. We find you hilarious as well. Thanks for listening.
Didn't need to say actually.
What?
Didn't need to say actually.
Okay. Yeah. I know you're hung up on that, but they seem like a nice people. So
I appreciated it. It was great.
You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe on Spotify. All of that stuff helps out. We appreciate it. It's Christmas time. And if you'd like to buy someone a really, really weird shirt that if they don't listen to us won't make any sense, you can go to TeePublic. We have T-shirts there. Tom, what did I miss?
Yeah, follow us on the socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, I don't know, all big ones. Yeah, MySpace, at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast. Let us know what you think of the show. If you have any fun theories, please let us know. And appreciate you guys tuning in.
We have a rap album on SoundCloud.
Yes.
Tell your friends.
Still hasn't been taken down yet.
We will be back next week and I apologize for the delay on this episode. It was all my fault. Tom, thanks for making yourself available. We'll be back for episode 5 of Silo. I have been Julian.
And I have been Tom. Till next week, everybody.